Hi, I'm Daniel Gold, and welcome to the Gold Standard Leadership Lab. By day, I'm a partner at a leading advisory firm where I draw upon my background as an attorney to help my clients succeed. This podcast, though, is my personal project, completely separate and apart from my day job, but reflects the same passion that I exhibit everywhere for teaching, mentoring, and helping others succeed through simple, impactful lessons. It is my hope that you'll walk away with practical takeaways to help you on your leadership journey. Thanks for being a part of this community and for joining me in the Leadership Lab. A quick word from a sponsor I am personally connected to. This podcast exists because I believe that leadership is a practice. And practice happens everywhere. In the lab, in the field, and even on a river in Europe. In July of 2027, I am boarding an AMA Waterways river cruise for a 7-night sailing on the Rhine. Amsterdam to Basel, through the Rhine castles and into the Swiss Alps. 7 nights on the water. My wife, a luxury travel designer at M. Markham Travel, has secured exclusive preferred rates on the specific sailing just for listeners of this show. This is not something available to the general public. She put this together just for GSL listeners. M. Markham Travel specializes in curating experiences that are worth the trip, and this itinerary is a genuinely exceptional one. If you have been thinking about a European river cruise, this is the sailing to book, and this is the rate to do it at. Here's what will make this sailing different for GSL listeners. I will be on that boat. Come find me on the deck. Bring your questions about the Golden Leadership Cycle or whatever you are working on through right now. We'll talk. No conference room, no agenda, no clock. To see the full itinerary and lock in your preferred rate, head over to mmarkhamtravel.com/GSL. That is mmarkhamtravel.com/GSL. Spots at this rate are very limited. If you are planning summer 2027 travel, do not wait on this one. Head over to mmarkhamtravel.com/GSL. Today's episode is going to start, a little differently from what I initially planned because of what happened to me this morning. Today is Sunday, and when I woke, I was greeted by a gorgeous morning. My Whoop confirmed what I knew. I slept incredibly well, with a recovery score of 93% and a sleep score of 79%, some of the highest scores that I've received since wearing the Whoop. And I was ready for my long-distance run. I got out of bed, excited to hit the pavement. I fueled up with carbs, hydrated with electrolytes and creatine like I always do, and I had my route mapped. My mind was locked in. Everything was good until I started to put my socks on. And that's when my lower back sent a signal that stopped the whole plan. It was as if club music were playing and you were feeling the groove when the record came to a very loud screeching halt. The pain hurt so badly in my back that I literally fell to the ground. My body sent me a signal that it had made up its mind, but my mind had not yet caught up. And so there I was, lying on my back with an ice pack and some pain medicine. And against every instinct to keep trying to run, my body would win out over my mind. The body just said, "No, Daniel, not today." And I had done everything right. The preparation, the intention, and the commitment, they were all there. And yet my body overruled it all in just seconds without a negotiation or deliberation. My mind immediately started negotiating. I'm already dressed. I fueled up. It's a beautiful morning. I said I was going to do this. I have a training schedule after all. Does any of this sound familiar? Because I'm talking about a run, but I'm not talking about a run. Because you are running that exact negotiation right now. About a client you should not have taken on. A commitment you made 3 months ago that every physical signal in your body has been flagging for 6 weeks. A conversation you need to have keeps getting pushed to the following week. Now look, the preparation that you have is real. The intention you have is real. The professional identity says go, but yet your body already knows the answer. And over the past year on this show, the resilience conversation has largely focused on what you build within yourself, such as the morning routine and calendar discipline. The practices that hold when the environment is not cooperating, I talked a lot about in episode 9. Sometimes you have to go slower in order to get faster. In episode 51, we talked about what holds when everything bends. The through line amongst those episodes has been developing the personal fortitude to stay in the game. That is real work, and I stand behind every word of it. However, 2 weeks ago, I spent several days listening to 5 world-class leadership speakers. One of them was a physician named Dr. Neha Sangwan. And what she said really resonated with me. She said, if your mind and your body disagree, the body wins every time. And I felt that literally this morning. And then she said something, though, that was more specific. She said, the signals your body sends, the tightness in your shoulders, the weight in your chest, the specific quality of exhaustion that feels differently from ordinary tiredness, that's not noise, folks. They are data. Accurate, protective, early warning data that the professional identity has been trained to override. And here's what I think most leaders have gotten wrong, including me at various points in my own career. We have confused toughness with ignoring the signal, discipline with override, and along the way, we have foolishly called it resilience when it was really suppression. Those two things look identical from the outside, but I am telling you they are not. I've also run long enough now to know that my body sends different kinds of signals on a run. There is the signal at mile 10 going up a steep hill. My legs feel heavy, and this is hard. I don't stop for that one. The signal is accurate. It is hard, and you are growing. You read it correctly as productive discomfort, and you keep on moving. But yet there's a completely different signal I want to talk about. And that's the one that says something is structurally wrong. A stress fracture does not feel like tired legs. And as with this morning, a pulled back does not feel like general fatigue. The quality, specificity, and location are vastly different. Now, the leaders that I have watched burn out over 20 years in professional services missed the signal. Why? Because they had been so thoroughly trained to treat all bodily signals as noise that they had lost the ability to distinguish among them. Every signal became a distraction from the work and just something else to push through. Dr. Sangwan puts a clinical frame around this. She describes 3 phases: the alarm phase, the adaptation phase, and the exhaustion phase. Most professionals are already in some stage of adaptation by the time anyone around them notices that something is wrong. The alarm phase, when the body sends the clearer signals, has already passed and they overrode it by calling it a rough week or a demanding client or it's just part of the job. But the reality was that it was data and they just did not read it. Dr. Sangwan's clinical work builds on 40 years of research by Christina Maslach and Michael Leiter into the structural causes of burnout. And what they found is that burnout is really an environmental design problem. And there are 6 specific conditions that produce it, regardless of how resilient the individual is. The first is workload without resources. You are being asked to execute at a velocity that has available tools, headcount, and clarity cannot support. That is not a personal capacity issue, it's a math problem, and no amount of personal discipline will solve it. The second is autonomy. The firm hired you for your judgment and then dictated your calendar. There's a tension there between the expectation of professional expertise and the reality of operational control, and it produces a specific kind of depletion. It is the depletion of someone who knows what needs to happen and is being prevented from doing it. And no meditation app can even come close to touching that. The third is absent recognition. And I talked about this in the arrival fallacy in episode 23, the tendency to fixate entirely on peak moments like a closed deal or a promotion. At the same time, the daily progress that constitutes most of a career goes unacknowledged. Look, when recognition only flows toward peaks, people start running a quiet calculation. Is the daily work worth it if nobody sees it? The fourth one is weak relationships. When culture over-indexes on individual metrics, colleagues become competitors. The psychological safety required for someone to say, I made a mistake or I need help, it disappears. And when that disappears, so does the honest signal. People stop reporting what is happening because disclosure carries a cost. The fifth one is perceived unfairness. When the gap between what the organization says it values and how it allocates compensation and makes decisions become visible, trust erodes. We've talked about this before on the Gold Standard Leadership Lab. It does not erode loudly, it erodes in the daily calculation, your best people's sense of whether this place deserves their discretionary energy. Finally is disconnection from purpose. When the daily work feels entirely decoupled from something that matters, you are asking people to perform an institutional identity that conflicts with who they are. And that conflict, the distance between who the environment requires you to be and who you are, is the most expensive thing in modern leadership. I made that argument in episode 67. And these 6 drivers are the structural machinery that produces it. And here's what strong quarterly revenue does to this picture. It acts as camouflage. It hides all 6 of these conditions so well that leadership teams look at the numbers and conclude everything is fine until the departure email arrives. Until the partner meeting where someone finally says what everyone has been thinking for 18 months. The numbers were telling one story, the bodies in the room were telling another. The resilience conversation in this show has been missing something. Resilience is not just something you build in yourself. As your leadership matures, your primary resilience job changes. It stops being about how much pressure you can personally absorb, and it starts with engineering an environment where your people are not asked to override their own signals to prove their loyalty. The partner who comes back from vacation more exhausted than when they left is not failing at rest. They are accurately reporting that one of those 6 conditions is present inside of their current environment. The associate who said yes to one more matter, even though every signal said no, is not failing at boundaries. They're operating in a system that penalizes the honest signal. Your job is not to coach those people to manage their energy better. Your job is to look at the 6 conditions and ask, which ones are you personally creating? And that requires a different kind of listening that most leaders practice. Dr. Sangwan describes 5 levels. Most of us operate at level 3. We're listening for the data, scope, timeline, deliverable. Heart listening, level 4, is listening for what the person is experiencing. And I can tell you that the gap between those 2 levels is where your team's honest signal lives. And most leaders operate below it without even realizing it. So I want to close this week by coming full circle to where we started. Me, lying on my back with ice on it, hoping that I could still head out for my long distance run. The body winning this morning was a clear leadership decision. I say that because it was obvious once I stopped negotiating with myself. Your body has been sending you signals about your work, about your relationships, and about your commitments and your environment for longer than you have been willing to admit it. The exhaustion that does not resolve after a good night's sleep, the specific weight that you feel on Sunday evenings is different from your ordinary tiredness. The feeling in your chest when a certain client's name appears on your phone. Those are all data signals, my friends. And the data signals, the most disciplined thing you can do when you see those show up is maybe not showing up. It might be reading the signal accurately for the first time in a long time. Now, as most of you know, I've been working on a book this past year. And at the center of it is the argument that the leaders worth following refuse to perform a smaller version of themselves, including refusing to perform in vulnerability when the body was already keeping a more accurate score. But more on that soon. For now, remember, leadership isn't about perfection. It is about progress. So take this lesson, put it into action, and continue setting the goals